This is the One Piece Void Century Iceberg. It's split into 6 parts and contains a bunch of theories and information about Joy Boy, Emu, poneglyphs, and pretty much anything related to the Void Century. In the first stage, we'll cover some basic info and theories you probably know about, but as we go further through the stages, the theories will slowly get weirder and weirder, and some of them near the end are absolutely insane. So let's start with something simple: the Ancient Kingdom. The Ancient Kingdom was a big and powerful kingdom that existed during the Void Century. Due to something that happened back then, this kingdom was completely erased from history, with even its name remaining a secret. However, before they were completely erased, the people of the kingdom managed to carve special messages onto the poneglyphs and scatter them around the world in the hope that someone would read them in the future. The 20 Kingdoms. Besides the Ancient Kingdom, during the Void Century there also existed 20 independent kingdoms. For some reason, the 20 royal families from these kingdoms formed an alliance to combat the Ancient Kingdom. They were successful, and that alliance eventually became the world government we know today, with the royal families becoming the Celestial Dragons. Joy Boy. Joy Boy was a title held by a mysterious person during the Void Century. Although we don't know anything about him, we know that he left a treasure of unimaginable value on the last island of the Grand Line, which eventually became known as One Piece. The meaning of D. One of the most popular and almost confirmed theories is that D stands for Dawn, and that the first D people lived during the Void Century. During that time, it's believed that they fought against the 20 Kingdoms and lost. Since then, their descendants have carried the name D throughout centuries in hope of one day bringing a new dawn to the world. This is why the world government views them all as great threats, except for Garp. He's cool, apparently. A lot of people also believe that the people of D were the first ever pirates who fought for freedom, similar to what many of D members are doing now. Some additional things supporting this theory are Mink's words about someone who will bring dawn to the world, and even Toki said a similar thing. By the way, even Luffy's home island is called Dawn Island, which is a bit too on the nose. The technology of the Ancient Kingdom. During the Egghead Island arc, we got a lot of information about the Ancient Kingdom, and judging by everything we saw, it's pretty much confirmed that the Ancient Kingdom had very advanced technology. Probably even more advanced than the stuff Vegapunk makes. Some evidence of this is that ancient weapons were most likely created during the Void Century. There's a giant robot on Egghead, and we can't forget that they also had the knowledge and the materials to create poneglyphs, which are indestructible. Joy Boy had the 𝐵𝐲𝐵𝐻 no Mi. During his final battle against Kaido, Luffy managed to awaken his devil fruit and become the sun god Nika. However, what's more interesting is that right after it happened, Zunisha said that Joy Boy has returned. This obviously implies that Joy Boy from the Void Century also awakened this fruit at some point and was most likely the fruit's original user. Before we continue down the iceberg and cover some of the most interesting theories about the Void Century, I want to quickly tell you guys about the sponsor of today's video, Web Novel. Web Novel is an app that allows you to read a bunch of cool comics and novels like Solo Leveling, Tales of Demons and Gods, My Dragon System. However, the one that I want to talk about today is Lord of Mysteries. This story follows 𝐂𝐮 𝗵𝗏𝗏, who is reincarnated into a Victorian-era world filled with machinery, magic, and sealed artifacts. In this world, 𝗂𝐮 slowly starts developing powers due to mysterious potions while he tries to unravel the mysteries surrounding him. I just recently started reading the story myself, and it's really intriguing, but don't take my word for it. It's also one of the best rated novels on Web Novel and is even getting an anime adaptation soon. Yeah, it's that good. All you have to do to read it is click my link in the description to download the free Web Novel app, type Lord of Mysteries in the search bar, and you're ready to go. Thanks to Web Novel for sponsoring. And guys, Lord of Mysteries, give it a try. You'll be surprised. Joy Boy was a giant. Another really well-known theory is that this mysterious Joy Boy we hear so much about wasn't a human, but a giant. Firstly, everything associated with Joy Boy is really big, like Noah, the biggest ship in the world, Zunisha, his 35-kilometer-tall companion, and the giant frozen straw hat at Mary Joa. Also, we can't forget that the people of Elbaf, who are giants, know suspiciously a lot about the sun god and are definitely hiding a lot more secrets about the past on their island. Do they know all these things because Joy Boy was one of them? Another interesting thing is that pretty much all giants we saw in the story so far wear some kind of hat. Saul, Ors Jr., Yeti Cool Brothers, Dory, and Brogy, which could be some kind of tradition because Joy Boy wore one. Okay, with this, the first stage is completed, but this is where it gets good, as the second stage is filled with theories way more interesting than these. Narora Imu. During the recent chapters, we got the confirmation that one of the 20 founders of the government 800 years ago was named Narora Imu. Obviously, this led a lot of people to speculate that Narora Imu may be the same Imu who's now sitting on the empty throne and has somehow survived to this day. Although it wasn't yet confirmed that these two are the same person, we at least know that Imu from 800 years ago was a male. This is because in the Japanese version of the manga, he was addressed with Sei, which is a word used only for male celestial dragons. One Piece takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. This theory has been going around for many years. Basically, a lot of people believe that the One Piece world was flooded at one point, which would explain why there are only islands now and no continents. The celestial dragons living on the highest point of the world would also make sense since they wouldn't have to worry about the water catching up to them. Also, in chapter 908, when the Gorosei spoke of the Great Cleansing, this could be what they meant, just flooding the world and starting from scratch because people are close to exposing their secrets. Another thing supporting this can be found in the religious story of Noah's Ark, where a huge ship was created in order to save people from the flood. We already know that Noah exists in the One Piece world, so why wouldn't the flood be real as well? The origin of devil fruits. During the Egghead Island, when Luffy transformed into his Nika form, Vegapunk said something really interesting. Now, although there are a couple of translations of what exactly he said, in general it goes something like this. Everything is poured into this world after it was wished for. The same goes for devil fruits. They are the powers of the wide range of wishes for humanity's future. Judging by this, it's possible that devil fruits were initially created during the Void Century out of people's wishes for freedom, power, or control. This makes even more sense when you realize that some devil fruits can choose their own users. Oh, and also if this turns out to be true, that would mean that someone in the Void Century really wanted to be worn as a jacket, which is a bit questionable. Zunesha's crime. Although we don't know much about Zunesha, we know that during the Void Century, it committed some kind of crime and was sentenced to walk the seas for eternity. Another thing we know for sure is that during the Void Century, Joy Boy made a promise to fishmen that he wasn't able to keep. So, if we put these two together, could it be that this promise is somehow related to Zunesha's punishment? This theory states that Joy Boy's failed promise to the fishmen was that he would destroy the Red Line and bring them to the surface so that they can live with the other races. He planned to do this with the help of Zunesha, but for some reason, the plan failed. Maybe Zunesha wasn't strong enough to destroy the Red Line, or it was something else entirely. Anyway, Zunesha most likely blamed itself for this and decided to punish itself by walking through the ocean until the next Joy Boy arrived, so it could finally finish what it failed to do 800 years ago. If this is true, it would mean that by the end of the series, Luffy would use Zunesha to destroy the Red Line. And as ridiculous as it sounds, I can totally see something like this happening. Gorosei from the Void Century. So did you ever wonder how Doflamingo knew that the 𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐼 can give someone immortality? And on top of that, he also knew that it would kill the user if they did it. For him to know that, it must have happened at least once before, maybe even multiple times, which leads us to this theory. So far in the show, we've seen Gorosei at multiple points in time, and each time they look exactly the same. This theory states that all 5 elders are actually from the Void Century and have survived this long because they had an immortality operation done on them by the previous users of the 𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐵𝐼. This could explain why celestial dragons like Doflamingo know about its powers. Although the theories so far were pretty interesting, they're still relatively well known. However, this is soon about to change, as theories in the 3rd stage are way wilder than this. Like for example, this one, the Mysterious City of Gold. I doubt many of you have heard about this one before, but the Mysterious City of Gold was a cartoon that aired around 40 years ago in Japan. However, the interesting thing is that Oda apparently took a lot of ideas from it when he was coming up with One Piece. In this cartoon, the main protagonist is named Esteban, which pretty much translates to the child of the sun. He sails into the New World to find hidden treasure. He has to find 4 secret locations and mark them on the map, and you'll never guess it, his crewmate is the only girl in the world who can read the forgotten language. Seems a bit familiar, doesn't it? So if we assume that the story of One Piece will keep following the story of this show, could we use that to possibly predict what the One Piece is? What is it that Esteban finds in the City of Gold? Well, they find some kind of nuclear fusion reactor, which in One Piece could be some sort of infinite power reactor that lets Luffy use the ancient weapons. Since we already discussed how the ancient kingdom was technologically advanced, this would actually make a lot of sense. The true identity of the 5 elders. So normally when a One Piece character uses their powers for the first time, we get a panel explaining what devil fruit they ate. However, with the elders, we just get the names of their demon forms, as if they don't have any devil fruits and are just that, demons. Their powers are also much different than anything else we've seen in the story. Being able to telepathically talk with each other from afar, exploding people's faces without touching them, freezing people in place. But the most interesting thing is the fact that they require a summoning ring in order to transform. So what if these guys are the real demons and not humans? We already know that the underworld is a real place since Brook confirmed it, and we know that demonic rituals also exist in the world of One Piece. So could it be that someone from the Void Century summoned these creatures in order to fight the ancient kingdom? The Enies Lobby. Recently in the anime, we've seen this chilling scene of Lelougia Kingdom getting erased by Emu and becoming this bottomless black hole. But does this remind you of something? That's right. It's pretty much the same as the hole in Enies lobby. Pretty suspicious. Another really interesting thing to note is that the earthquake made from the erasure of 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 was the strongest earthquake ever recorded. This means that the island that existed in place of Enies lobby had to be destroyed during the Void Century, as we have no records of anything during that time. So what could this island have been? Well, the best guess is that it was a nation allied with the ancient kingdom that was deleted by the world government for some reason. The truth behind 𝐵𝐴𝐃𝐈𝐒. This theory is very well known among the One Piece community. Basically, fans believe that the song 𝐵𝐴𝐃𝐈𝐒 was created during the Void Century in order to instruct people on how to reach Laugh Tale. One major thing supporting this theory is that Oda wrote the lyrics for 𝐵𝐴𝐃𝐈𝐒 himself, so he could have hidden any clues he wanted in there. Another thing is that some of the song's lines are a bit suspicious. For example, this one could be alluding to Gold Roger and Silver's Rayleigh, this one could be hinting towards the Drums of Liberation, and the ending of the song literally translates to Laugh Tale. Okay, but why would these secrets even be hidden in the song? Well, it could be so that the world government couldn't erase them when they were erasing everything else related to the Void Century, as they would think it's just a regular pirate song. Alright, let's kick off the 4th stage with the craziest theory so far. The mystery of Kozuki Toki. Toki is a weird and mysterious character because she was born in the Void Century but died only 20 years ago due to the powers of her time-traveling devil fruit. Now, she didn't talk a lot about the Void Century, but that didn't stop fans to come up with some really interesting theories about her past. One theory is that Toki is actually Nefertari D. Lily, who we know scattered the poneglyphs around the world and then simply vanished. Maybe she disappeared because she went into the future. Also, how would Lily even scatter the poneglyphs around the world? Shouldn't moving them be impossible? Well, not if you have a devil fruit that can send stuff in the future. That could explain it, I guess. Inu's true identity. So we already talked about how the 5 elders may be the actual devils, but what if the truth is a bit different than that? You see, this theory states that there was only one demon summoned from the underworld, and that demon took the human body of Nerona Imu, one of the 20 kings, in order to mask itself. This demon then summoned 5 underlings from the underworld, the 5 elders, who would take care of everything while it secretly ruled the world. Something supporting this is that Imu's monster form apparently has a tail that looks identical to the devil's tail. And also, it would be a great explanation as to how Imu survived this long, because last time I checked, demons don't die of old age. Lunarians and the ancient robot. So we know that before the world government took over the world, it was actually Lunarians who lived on the Red Line. Now, although it's not confirmed due to Luna meaning moon in Latin, a lot of people believe that Lunarians are actually from the moon. This would make sense considering that in Enel's cover story, we learned that some kind of advanced civilization lived on the moon at some point. Now, if we combine these two things together, wouldn't it make sense that it was Lunarians who built the ancient robot who's currently on Egghead? Yeah, it would. Furthermore, we can assume that they made it in order to protect the Red Line from any enemies, which makes perfect sense considering the first thing Robot did when it awakened was to attack celestial dragons on the Red Line. The Sunlight Tree Eve. The Sunlight Tree Eve has only been briefly mentioned during the Fishman Island arc. However, we know that the tree atom is very important in the One Piece world as it's used to create the strongest ships like Going Merry and Oro Jackson. So a lot of fans theorize that the Tree Eve may also hide some secrets that haven't been revealed yet. What we know so far is that this tree spreads sunlight through its roots and is growing next to the Red Line or maybe even through it. In the biblical story of Adam and Eve, Eve gets convinced by the devil to eat the forbidden fruit, which gets them banished from the Garden of Eden. Now, if we assume that Oda took some symbolism from this story, namely the motive of fruit and devil, there is a real possibility that the Eve tree is where the devil fruits originated from. If this is true, it most likely happened during the Void Century and may even be the reason why the war started back then. Before we cover the 6th stage of the iceberg containing some of the most ridiculous theories you've ever heard, let's cover the 5th stage first, and trust me, these ones are pretty crazy as well. Zunesha is Pluton. In the past, we just assumed that the ancient weapons were all physical objects, but during the Fishman Island arc when the Straw Hats met Shirahoshi, we realized that that's not always the case. So could it be that Pluton is also a living being? More specifically, Zunesha? Some things supporting this theory is that Zunesha is confirmed to be almost 1,000 years old, which would mean that it was most likely born during the Void Century when ancient weapons were active. Also, Zunesha obeys only what Momonosuke says, just like Shirahoshi is the only one whom the Sea Kings listen to. Now, you could say that this would make Momonosuke Pluton and not Zunesha, but that's a theory for another day. The secret of the Red Line. While the Straw Hats were on their way to the Fishman Island, Nami explained that the Red Line is formed by a ton of islands, all with different climates, almost as if someone just moved them all there for some reason. And do you know which character in the show is known as the continent polar? That's right, Oars. Now, although the swords lived only around 500 years ago, it's possible that back during the Void Century there were many ancient giants around who could move islands like oars could. So together, they could have formed the Red Line by moving and connecting many islands from different parts of the world. Now, I have no idea why they would want to do something like that, but it could be to split the world into two big nations or something like that, I guess. The skull in Onigashima. Okay, so this theory is a bit out there, but there are some people who believe that since Joy Boy was most likely a giant, the skull in Onigashima may be his skull. Now, this skull is enormous, way bigger than a regular giant skull. However, since we know that Zunesha is also enormous, wouldn't it kind of make sense for Joy Boy to be too, since they were friends? Also, it's kind of thematically fitting as Luffy transformed into Joy Boy on top of this skull, and Kaido, who believed himself to be Joy Boy, chose it as his base of operation. So it could be that this skull is actually Joy Boys? Well, it is One Piece. I guess everything's possible. 𝐵𝐲𝐻 are aliens. Okay, this one is wild. Due to Enel's backstory, we already know that life in space exists in the One Piece world, so it could be that 𝐵𝐲𝐻 and Imu are aliens too. First of all, they're named after the planets in our solar system, which is a bit weird, and they also look at the other human beings as insects, almost as if they consider themselves not human. Also, let's not forget that the world's nobles are called celestial dragons and wear literal air helmets, which is another weird reference to space. Okay, but would Oda really put aliens as Luffy's final enemy? Well, if we go all the way back to volume 1 of One Piece, we can see this picture. It's Oda wearing an alien mask and saying how he had to do a lot of research in order to start writing One Piece. Did he by any chance do some research on aliens during this time? Anyway, if this theory turns out to be true, it could be that 𝐵𝐲𝐻 and Imu came to Earth during the Void Century in order to take over and chose to mask themselves as humans so nobody would suspect anything. And here we are, the 6th stage. I hope you're prepared because these theories may leave you with permanent brain damage. Joy Boy is Imu. Okay, I know this theory sounds absolutely insane, and that's because it is, but hear me out. We already discussed how Oda likes to take inspiration from different religions and cultures, and therefore this theory focuses on two Egyptian gods, 𝐾𝐵𝐻 and 𝐴tum. 𝐾𝐵𝐻 is described as the god of the rising sun and is represented by a beetle. And do you know who also is a sun god and has connections to beetles? That's right, Luffy. He absolutely loves them. On the other hand, 𝐴tum is a god of the setting sun, which is completely opposite to 𝐾𝐵𝐻, and he's the one who takes the sun away in the evening. However, what's most interesting in this is that both of these gods are just different manifestations of the same god, Ra. Now this is where the theory gets crazy. What if just like these two gods, Joy Boy and Imu were the same person 800 years ago as split personalities? One pure good and one pure evil. But something happened during the Void Century that let Imu take full control. Mihawk's true origins. If you pay close attention to Mihawk's, Zunesha's, and Imu's eyes, you'll notice that they all have surprisingly similar ringed patterns. Now, this could just be an artistic choice by Oda and not have any deeper meaning, but that's not what we're here for, so let's craft a ridiculous theory about it. First of all, some people have pointed out that these eyes might be the side effect of immortality surgery, which would make some sense, I guess, since both Zunesha and Imu seem to be alive for a very long time. Another theory is that this eye pattern was common among royalty during the Void Century, which could make Mihawk a descendant of an ancient family living in hiding. But what I wonder the most is, how does X-Drake connect to all of this? 𝐵𝐲𝐻 Roger ending theory. You see, there was this guy calling himself 𝐵𝐲𝐻 Roger, who claimed he knew exactly how One Piece would end. He stated that Kuma would die at Egghead and that Frankie will eat his devil fruit. Then, using that fruit and Bonnie's, Luffy will somehow get sent back in time to the Void Century. There, he would meet two brothers, Daidas, later known as Joy Boy, and Imu, who is secretly plotting a betrayal. He goes on about many other things like what the One Piece actually is, and Luffy fighting Blackbeard in a dream world, but as you probably guessed by now, this leak was completely debunked by everything we found out in the newer chapters. Still, this was huge news at some point, so it definitely deserves its place on the iceberg, although at the very bottom. Imu is AI. Okay, so far we theorized that Imu might be a devil. We also theorized that he might be an alien, but we're too deep now for such simple theories, so put your tinfoil hat on and let's cover a theory about Imu being an AI. As you already guessed, this theory doesn't have a lot of evidence backing it up, but we know that the ancient kingdom was technologically advanced, so it wouldn't be a stretch to say that they created some kind of AI to manage things for them. At some point, that AI called Imu went rogue and became obsessed with taking over the world. Also, a lot of evil robots in movies have red eyes, and what is the only thing about Imu's appearance that we know for sure? That's right, the red eyes, which is irrefutable evidence to this theory. Jokes aside, Imu does sound like a cool robot name. If you liked this video, you can click on this video next where we explained 91 One Piece secrets almost nobody knows.